أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم. تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فاغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم 2 فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم مجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أأتخذ من دونه آلهة يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون يا كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ضلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق فلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد فاتحة
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقولها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحتك الإثام اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضئا متذللا خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقضائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادهم من البلاء أقلته وكم من إثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقسوت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد آمالي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بخيانتها ومطوالي. يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء أمري وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما أملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي. وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور أتوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنذر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسأله على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي مؤتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا. لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي. يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انتوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك، وأتقنه ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضئا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيء من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من آويت، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا، وعلى ألسن لتكت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارها سأت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفار مذعنة ما هكذا الذنوب بك، ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكار على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل، مكسه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمال لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكار فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أذج، وأبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته؟ فلئن صيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي. صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك؟ وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر عن النذر إلى كرامتك؟ أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك؟ فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناتكا لأذجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآمرين، ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاك طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يزج إليك زجيجا معمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تعلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يهركه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتكلكل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات، ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما. لكنك تقدست أسماؤك، أقسمت أن تملعها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجل ثناؤك. قلت مبتدئا وتتولت بالعنعام متكرما، أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وهكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهبني في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته، وكل ذنب أذنبته، وكل قبيح أسررته، وكل جهل أملته كتمته أو أعلنته، أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني، وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت، وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر تنشر أو رزق تبسط أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناسيتي، يا عليما بذري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقات من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي، يا من عليه مؤولي، يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جواره واشدد على العزيمة جوانه وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرها إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في المبادرين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وأخافك مخافة الموقنين وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد ومن كادني فكد واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك وأقربهم منزلة منك وأخصهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك بالله بفضلك وجد لي بجودك واعتف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وأقلني عسرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وضمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وسلاهه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النقم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
الله صل على محمد وآل محمد.
سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله
صل على محمد
أشهد أن محمد رسول الله.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sayyid Hasan Rizvi, respected elders, brothers, sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Surah Fatiha is requested for all the names listed on the screen and Kul Arwahil Mu'mineen wal Mu'minat Sawab al-Fatiha. Ayat Ma Yajibun is requested for all the names listed on the screen and whoever is in need of it here and elsewhere. Let us all recite it together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu su. Amma yujibul mustarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu su. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Now let us invite Sayyid to come forward to recite tonight's majlis par Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين شفيع المذنبين رحمة للعالمين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, mu'minat, brothers and sisters in Islam and Iman, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've been discussing how to build a wilaya-ready community. That same system of support that some of the Ahlul Bayt had, from the 6th Imam onwards to the 12th Imam, that same wikala system, we looked at that a few weeks ago and we said that maybe this is something, or the strengths of that system is something missing from our communities. And perhaps if we can establish something similar to that in our own community, then perhaps this will get us ready for the reappearance of the Imam of the time. And we said that this wikala system, a community that's ready for wilaya, has a few different traits, a few different characteristics. Some of these things are legal in nature, some of these things are economic in nature, and then we talked about how a group of individuals that's ready for the Imam, theologically is also ready for their Imam. Philosophically, they're ready for their Imam, meaning that they have the right aqidah and aqa'id. Their belief system is appropriate and proper. Previously, we've talked about how there are going to be people falsely claiming that they're prophets, that they are the Imam, that they're representatives of the Imam, so we have to be on guard from that. We talked about some personalities who lived during the time of the Prophet who claimed these things, right? We said that the Prophet himself said that he has been sent down between two jahiliyas, a jahiliya al-ula and thani, or akhir. He said, the second one is going to be the worst one, the more evil one. Perhaps this is the one that we have to prepare for and get ready for, and we could be living in it right now. And then we asked the question, why is there all this doubt in the first place? Why are there all these theological questions and uncertainties and confusions? What is the actual purpose for this? So we looked at a conversation that took place between Zurara and our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. And an excerpt from that conversation with the sixth Imam, because they were talking about the Qa'im, right, the Mahdi. And one party said that all of these doubts, all this confusion, all of this, for the Shia, it's an imtihan, it's a test. He said, but on the other side, for those who are mubtilun, those who are seeking what's false, they're going after lies, fakeness, a false sense of reality, for them, it'll be a murib or raib. It'll be this sense of doubt and confusion. So we said that all of these uncertainties or issues or lack of yaqeen that may exist right now for Shias, they said, according to the sixth Imam, that can't be a quality of a Shia. A Shia, when they have all these doubts or uncertainties, for them it's an imtihan. So they won't have that sort of negative spin on it. But for somebody who's a mubtalun, somebody who is after batil, for falsehood, for what's wrong, what's incorrect, for them this will be a test. For them it'll be very, very trying. And because of the anxiety that they're going to get from that test, it'll lead them into what's called raib, this extreme sort of doubt and confusion. And this is where we, I think, left off last time. We quoted another narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And he said that raib is not going to be a quality if you are mukhlis, if you are truly sincere. And shak won't occur to you if you have yaqeen, if you're muqin. He said, okay, so the Imam is using two different words here. One is raib and one is shak. And we see both of these words used in the Quran as well. Right? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. There's no doubt in it. At the same time, we see the word shak used multiple times. It's a word we're familiar with from, Arabic, English, Farsi, Urdu, or our languages. Shak it also means doubt or confusion and uncertainty. So how are you going to understand both of these words? There's actually, according to some ulama, a very fine difference between these two concepts, and that's what we want to talk about tonight. What is the possible difference between shak and raib? So let's go to, as we've always done with any of these Arabic terms, we go to the background, go to the original meaning of it, and see what that gives us. So shak, the original letters are sheen and then two kafs, right? Shakaka. When it's used in this verbal sense, shakka, it means to pierce. And that's how the Arabs would use it, to pierce, to stab, to penetrate something. So for example, a soldier or somebody may say, shakaktuhu birrumh. I stabbed him, or I pierced him with a spear, right? So this had, again, either military connotations, right? For a soldier, you could use the same thing for maybe when you're attacking an animal. So it had that idea. So that's one. Now keep that meaning in the back of your head, right? Shak, raib. Shak, meaning being to pierce. Now, when ulama look at raib, they say, look, there's two different opinions here. A group of ulama say that raib and shak, there's no difference at all. They're just synonyms. Right? So don't get all bent out of shape. This is just, Allah's using two different words. He uses synonyms all the time. No big deal. So that's one opinion. Again, we've talked about this before. Many of our mufassirin say that, look, Allah doesn't just throw around words haphazardly. He doesn't just say, you know what, I can use this word or this word. They have the same meaning. It's not a big deal. When we're dealing with somebody who's hakim, when you're dealing with somebody who understands the intricacies of the Arabic language, and somebody who's chosen the Arabic language to reveal his word, kalimatul haqq, right? The Quran is Allah's word. Is he just going to play around and use synonyms here and there when there's a possibility that they have specific meanings? And as many of the linguists of Arabic language say, that no, every single word in Arabic has a unique meaning. There are no synonyms. Every single word has a different meaning. So based on that, they say no, shak and raib, there is actually a difference. So what is it? Now boil it down this way. They say, look, shak and raib are not the same, but they're very, very close. Well, how close? They say that raib is actually a type of shak. It's a type of doubt or uncertainty that you may have, a type of confusion. So some of them say that it's what we normally would call, right? Because we can have normal doubts. Something, I don't know. Is it raining outside right now? Okay, I don't know. That's a doubt. It's a confusion. It's an uncertainty. It could be. But there are certain times when that doubt takes on a new flavor, a new characteristic, and it becomes a crippling doubt. And maybe because, let's say, I left my car windows open. Now, me not knowing whether it's raining or not is actually going to affect me internally. Because now I'm like, okay, if it's raining, well, I know my windows are open. And if windows are open and it's torrential downpour, my car is going to be ruined. And I have this in my car and that. And then my mind starts racing and going all over the place. Because of one suspicion, because of one idea that possibly it's raining, and this could be the consequence. So they say that this is what raib means. It's shak, it's a doubt, it's an uncertainty, it's something you don't know, but it comes along with anxiety. It comes along with stress. It comes along with agitation or shock or hesitation as well. Because as my mind is racing and kind of creating this like movie, like, what could happen? If it's raining outside, if it's drizzling, then maybe it won't be so bad. But if it's really bad, then, it's going to go through all the windows and, I have these kind of seats and it's going to get ruined. If I do that, you know how much this stuff costs? And your mind starts making this whole movie, right? You start going, you're doing the accounting for everything. And then you're talking about when I go and sit down there, it's going to be disgusting. And when I go home, it's going to be like this. You're painting, you're creating a future based on a certain possibility and probability. No, it could be very well the case that, it's not raining at all and then there's no issue. But if it actually is, then basically now your whole night is ruined. And your mind races to that negativity. So in this sense, that's why some ulama say raib is a negative sort of shak. Because it comes with this agitation. It comes with all these doubts, and it ruins somebody internally. And also, in the Quranic context, it ruins somebody spiritually as well. Now here is where I'm going to give an analogy back to each of these original meanings. Remember we talked about shak meaning to pierce or to puncture. So I'm going to give an analogy and tie it to this idea, right? Because we're still talking about time, uncertain times. We're living in, this new age ignorance going around in the world. People are just so unsure about themselves, unsure about what is true, what is false. Is there a God? Is there not? Which religion is right? All these things. How do we understand that kind of doubt and our response to that doubt and how to solve these doubts using just the original meanings of these Arabic words? So I'm going to give you an analogy, and it's going to be a tire analogy. If you can recite as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So why a tire analogy? Well, because we said shak, the verb shakka means to pierce, right? So picture this. You're driving, maybe you're on the way here, on the way home from tonight, and you get, something punctures or pierces your tire. So you start losing air, and then eventually your tire goes flat. So what do? Now, for many of us, this might be, alhamdulillah, that's not a big deal, right? If you notice it, if you know that, I can hear the air coming out, or you hit a bump, so you hear that, you did that, you start to feel your car pulling one way or the other. So you know the signs, and because of the signs, you're like, okay, something went wrong, it looks like flat tire, or it's losing air, something's wrong with it. So what do? You pull over, and you take care of it, if you know how to take care of it. Or if maybe you're driving with somebody, maybe a friend or your spouse, maybe they know how to take care of it. When I say spouse, I think we know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But I'm trying not to be sexist right now, just in case. So you pull over, and then somebody else takes care of it. So either you do it yourself or somebody else does it. Or if you're all by yourself, you don't know what you're doing, then whatever. Maybe you have a AAA membership, or somebody passes by, whatever. Somebody else will take care of it for you. There's only two options. You take care of the flat tire yourself, or somebody else does. That's it. Assuming you catch it in the first place, right? So basically, anybody who wants to replace a tire, they need two things. You obviously need a spare tire, and you need the knowledge of how to actually do it in the first place. Because even if you've got a jack in the back that comes with pretty much every car nowadays, right? I think it's like standard, you have to. Everything there is there, like let's say you have locks on your rims, whatever, right? Those lugs that are locking, you have the key for that. You have the knowledge and the know-how exactly how to do this, right? Some people, they try to lift it, they don't know exactly where do you put the jack, where's the actual lifting point, you put it in the wrong spot, it's going to compromise the integrity of the chassis, right? There's all these other issues there. Some people put it directly on the bumper, and then the bumper gets messed up, right? Or on the side bumper, at least. So you have to know what you're doing and you have to have the parts. It's both of these things. Now, let's take it back to this idea of us dealing with doubts and dealing with uncertainty in this time. Right now, in your mind, I'm sure there's plenty of issues about religion that you and I are uncertain about. There's plenty of theological issues that we don't know. Maybe they're issues that don't really affect our lives, right? People always, they ask, almost every single open Q&A, it's the same thing. Okay, so we know Nabi Adam and Bibi Hawa, alayhimus salam, they had some kids, they had some brothers. Who did the brothers marry? Was it their sisters? Because that's disgusting. How could they do that? Were there Hud al-Ain that they married? Because then that means all humans are part Hud al-Ain. Like, or did they marry angels? So people ask these sort of questions. So it's a doubt. Like people who ask, they don't know the answer. That's why they're asking, right? But whatever the answer is, it's not going to affect you at all, is it? Like if I told you, yes, we're actually all 20% Hud al-Ain, what are you going to do with that information, right? It's not going to help you. If I said that, yes, the Sharia was different back then, so they were allowed to marry their sisters just so that, the generations could start off. There was nobody else. Oh, okay. So no, it's not going to change anything. So sometimes, you have these doubts. Sometimes they get answered, sometimes they don't. No big deal, right? Sometimes that might happen with flat tire as well, right? Air starts leaking, but it's gradually leaking, maybe like, 1, PSI per day or every couple of days or something like that. Like it's a slow leak. It's not a big deal, right? It's not really going to affect me. When I get a chance, I'll take care of it. So for a lot of us, doubts are kind of like that. We're not going to go out and do any research. So even if you knew how to solve the problem yourself and actually go and look in books, whether Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, English, whatever, or you have somebody that you can contact and ask them the question, that doesn't really bother you too much. Yeah, maybe if you get the chance, you sit in a Q&A or whatever, we got Slido going on, or it's a discussion night, then you might just throw it out. I'm just curious, I want to know. A lot of doubts are like that. But then there's some doubts, meaning sometimes when that tire gets pierced, when it's actually destructive. Meaning if you don't pull over right away and take care of it, it's going to ruin everything. And there are some people who tire starts losing air, a lot of air, maybe they hit something really sharp. So it's just gone right away. What do? Either because they don't know how to take care of it themselves, or maybe they're lazy, whatever excuses, or they're in a rush somewhere. What do? They drive on that. They basically drive on, and I've seen people do this. They drive, and I'm sure you've seen around Florida enough people doing that too. Tire's gone completely, and they're just driving, ba-bum, 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 basically driving on their either hubcap or rim, and then it gets damaged. So what happens? What's the analogy here? Some doubts, yeah, they can creep, they can linger, it's not a big deal. It's not going to affect us. Some questions about Islam or philosophy or things that certain individuals right now, speakers and pseudo scholars are bringing up and saying, oh, this is inauthentic. Like, okay, so it's inauthentic. It's a dua. Who cares? This is a ziyarah. What's the big deal? We're all going to freak out and change our lives because maybe one person in the chain of narrations is not super strong. Calm down. It's just dua. It's a ziyarah. It's not that serious, right? Now, if there was some major issue, okay, now we can, okay, we have to sit down. We have to solve this problem. Fine. But for the serious doubts, for the serious issues, what happens is a lot of times we let them persist. And I've seen this happen a lot of times with individuals, right? They have questions about the concept of Islam itself, right? They're like, you know what? I don't really know if God exists. And they have that doubt from a young age, and now they're in their 60s or 70s or 80s. That same doubt, I don't know if God's actually real or not. Because they've been hearing all this nonsense propaganda from all different angles. Maybe it's coworkers, or atheist coworkers or classmates or something like that. Maybe it's, those family members that either jokingly or in a serious way, they start throwing out doubts to people, right? There's no proof for it anyway, whatever. We just do these things because of blind faith and culture, right? People who just toss these sort of comments off the cuff like that. Sometimes it affects us, sometimes it doesn't. But for some of us, it sits there and, it lingers and it creeps and then it cripples us at a point. A lot of people, when they ask questions, why is Maghrib like this? Or why is hijab rule like this? Why beard rule this? It's not that actual issue that's bothering them. It's something deeper behind that. Nobody ever says that, that the hissing sound from the tire losing air, that's bothering me. Nobody cares about that. The fact that, look, this, once that tire loses air, it's going to damage either the hubcap or the rims, or if that breaks, then I'm going to be driving on, on rotors basically, right? On the brakes, and you're going to ruin the car. That's really the issue here. Most people don't see what is lying underneath. really deep down within them, what is their actual doubt? And they're unable to solve that. And when they do that, it starts showing up in other things. So when we have these doubts in furu' ad-din, right, salah and khums and zakah and all those things, and hajj, whatever it is, yeah, those are minor things. Typically, all of those doubts are sourced in the usul ad-din. I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, especially with youth, but even certain adults too. When they ask me these questions, about prayer or whatever, I say, look, you have certainty that God exists, right? And then they just, yeah, I guess. What do you mean, yeah, I guess? Right? That's air leaking from your tire. That's air leaking from within. And perhaps that's why shak is coming from this word to pierce, because when that doubt enters us, it pierces us. And when it pierces us, when it punctures that hole into us, either we can go and fix it right away, or we can let it linger and it can damage us. When it gets to a point of damaging us, then it becomes rape. Then it can become crippling, debilitating. Then it can ruin our whole life. And you'll see many individuals, because they have so many of these doubts, these extreme doubts in their life, now they don't even want to practice anymore. Again, this may seem strange and unusual to some of you. I'm speaking with individuals right now at this moment. I'm not going to say whether they're from the community or not. But they're saying, look, because I have doubts in this idea about the Quran, I have doubts in this idea about the Prophet, or this idea about politics, or Islam's stance on LGBTQ, or democracy, whatever it is. They have some issue. They said, I've been unable to solve it for 2, 3, 5 years, and now I don't know if I should stay a Muslim anymore. This is a real issue that people face. I've seen it in young kids, I've seen it in teenagers, and people in college, people outside of college, young adults starting their life. And then I've seen it in elders as well, where all of these initial doubts in usul, in the basic belief system of Islam, because, well, for whatever reason, they didn't, learn it in a way that gave them satisfaction, they carried on with that dissatisfaction. They carried on with that flat tire, the tire losing air for so long, and now they're driving on their rims or their hubcaps, or probably on brakes. They've got nothing anymore. In fact, when it gets to a point, you won't be able to move. You can't drive anymore. And that's why a lot of us are so crippled, so debilitated, is that we're stuck and we have no spiritual growth left in us. Those doubts have completely immobilized us. And that's where we have to be very, very careful. Look at what this ayah of Quran says. This is Surah Hud, Surah 11, ayah 110. This is in Surah Hud. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابِ فَاخْتَلِفَ فِيهِ. So, and this same actual phrase, this ayah is repeated in many places in the Quran. Allah is saying, look, we gave the ayah, these various indicators and signs to Musa, right, through the kitab, right? فَاخْتَلِفُوا فِيهِ. People, even when Musa's coming, I'm a prophet, I'm doing these miracles for you, they're like, you know what, we're not really sure. We've got some, varying opinions. Let's ask our elders. Let's ask the magicians and the sorcerers. Let's ask all these people and let's get some opinions. So among the people there, yeah, there were some who directly followed Musa right away. And this is the story of all prophets, not just Musa, of course. And of course with Rasulullah as well, right? People there like, you know what? We know what you're saying sounds good, but there could be different possibilities. Maybe you're just a very good poet. Maybe you're possessed. Maybe this, maybe that. So they have differences about what could actually be happening. Only very few individuals said that this is haqq, this is true, and I have to act accordingly. How does Allah continue? وَلَوْلَا كَلِمَةٌ سَبَقَتْ مِنْ رَبِّكَ لَقُضِيَ بَيْنَهُمْ. If Allah wanted, had not a word gone forth from your Lord, the matter would surely have been decided between them. Yeah. So Allah is saying, look, if I wanted to, for all the people of the past and people right now, meaning during the time of the Prophet, and us right now, who have differences amongst ourselves as community members, family members, among ulama, there's differences. It's just a natural part of life. We're going to have differences of opinion, differences in approach, different ways that we see things. That's going to happen. Allah says, look, I could have judged people before, meaning there's obviously only one right way to do something if you've got a prophet in front of you, if you have an imam with you. You hear what the prophet says, the imam says, and you act. Sami'na wa ata'na. We hear, we obey. There's no other option. If that's the case, Allah said, look, I could have judged every single one of you right then. The minute you said no, or I've got a difference of opinion, or let me do more research, whatever it is, Allah said, I could have taken you to task, could have, killed you, burnt you, sent you to hell. That could have been what Allah did. But He says, what? وَلَوْلَا كَلِمَةٌ سَبَقَتْ مِنْ رَبِّكَ. It's your Rabb here. This is your nurturer. This is a loving parent here. Saying, look, you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes it might take some of you a little while to get the picture. It's okay. I'll give you some time. Hopefully you can come back around. How does Allah end? وَإِنَّهُمْ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهُ مُرِيبٍ. So there were extreme individuals who were just like, you know what, we're not really sure about this prophet. And that doubt lingered and it creeped and it messed with them. That's what's being said over here. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَفِي شَكٍّ. What kind of shak regarding what the prophet's saying? What kind of shak do they have? Shakkin murib. What did we say last time? Murib is coming from raib. It's a doubt, which, what does it say over here? Disquieting? Yeah, disquieting is not really not the best way, right? It's a shak, it's a doubt that ruins them. It penetrates into their soul and destroys them completely. And then they become hesitant. That shock and awe that took place because of these doubts, because I don't know if this guy's from God or not. I don't know if this person's a prophet. I don't know if this Quran is actually from God that, this person Muhammad's talking about. I don't know if this alim is giving me the right advice or not. Right? These sort of doubts. I don't know if this marja is really the most knowledgeable or not. All these things. It can get to a point where, for these individuals, it actually was. They had a way to know whether this was true or false. Allah gave them all the ayat. Everything was clear for them, but because of them just sitting in these doubts, the doubts added up and up and up. Negative thinking took place. They started to paint all of these possibilities. They said, okay, what are our forefathers going to say? What is my family going to say if I, become a Muslim? Or if I start becoming a practicing Muslim? If I make this decision in the community? What are they going to say? And it adds up and it destroys the individual, and then they end up not accepting the truth. That shak becomes murib. It ruins their soul, so now they are not going to accept the truth. Deep down, they know what exactly is right, but they allow a shak to develop. That raib, that negative thinking and suspicion, that creating, this whole picture of, is it raining outside? My car's going to get ruined, or, what's going to happen? All that sort of future prediction, or as, what did Sheikh Khalil Jafar call it, right? Negative suffering, right? It's just us, our mind projecting into the future, thinking about all this rather than thinking about, right now, if it's raining, guys, give me 1 second. I put down my laptop and I go, or I give somebody my keys and they go take care of it right away. If I have a doubt, if I'm not sure if something's on haqq or batil, if I'm not sure, then, well, 2 ways to change a tire. Either you learn to fix it yourself, you get the parts, you do it yourself, which for many of us may not work. People say, why can't we talk about moon sighting? Yeah, you can talk about moon sighting. Give me all the ayat regarding moon sighting. Tell me the original Arabic meanings of halal and ru'ya and shuhud. Give me all that. Let's talk about all the hadith which talking about it. Then you have to learn ilm al-rijal, ilm al-daraya, all these sciences. We can do all that. Whenever you want to sit down and go through these classes, no problem. But from those who attend the Saturday, Sunday classes, the attendance is usually not too big for this. People are like, 5-10 minutes max, that's all I want. I want all of Islam in reality in 5-10 minutes, right? Like dollar menu Islam, that's what they want. Drive through Islam. Okay, if that's what you want, then don't think you can start sitting down with ulama and start debating and, well, I've got an opinion on this matter too. Well, I'm sure you have an opinion, but your opinion doesn't really mean much, right? If there's no research or, power behind it. So we have to be very, very careful in allowing this sort of negative thinking and suspicion and all these other creeping ideas to ruin us in terms of our spiritual journey. Look at this interesting narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. He uses both of these words, shak and raib. La tartabu fatashakku. Don't have these sort of negative, crippling, debilitating doubts, because then that'll end up into other tiny, lesser doubts as well. You start having these major issues where it's true, but you're jumping off into negative thinking. If you do that, then all this new shak will develop, and then you're going to start and repeat the cycle all over again. When something is unknown, we need to go and solve it. When we don't know what's going on, go and take care of it. 2 options. Either learn to fix it yourself, learn to solve the doubt yourself, research, read, there are options. Or you find somebody else. If you don't know how to change a tire, you get somebody else to do it, no problem. You call somebody to do it. If you don't know how to answer these Islamic questions or political questions or whatever it is, you find somebody credible, a good alim that you trust, say, okay, look, I need help with these things. Get their contact information, email, WhatsApp, whatever, and just message them. Say, look, I have this issue, I'd like to sit down and discuss it. This is exactly what many of the companions did of the imams. Whenever they had a small issue, some of the ashab, the companions, the Shias, they would, first amongst themselves, they would start arguing about things like, what is the most ideal way to shave your armpits? So they would argue about stuff like that. One of them would say, look, you're supposed to use nuda, right? This specific powder that exists. Some said, no, you have to use a blade. Like, some say, no, you got to leave it alone. The nasty guy saying, no, leave it alone, right? No, you're supposed to shave your armpits, please. So they had their different opinions. And then they'd say, okay, time to go to the imam. They go to the imam. Imam would say, well, this guy's right. Now the guy would say, yeah, I told you so. I knew I was right. Or sometimes they'd all be wrong, right? Something like that. So yeah, you want to talk about stuff amongst your friends or your baraza or WhatsApp group? Fine. I mean, know your limits, obviously. Start the discussion. Say, okay, now let's go get it solved. Let's go see if there's actually a way out of this. And sometimes we may get the answer. Sometimes we might not. Sometimes we deserve that deeper truth, and sometimes we don't. Do we really think that all of reality is opened up to us? Like, every single secret about the universe, I deserve it? No, I don't think so, right? So we have to, keep ourselves open about that. But on the other side, we have to be very, very careful that we don't fall prey to weak arguments as well. Because we have a lot of that going on, whether it's from, the general public, meaning just some general person saying, this is my opinion on moon sighting, or this is my opinion on khums, or this is my opinion on the Quran, or whatever. That's a lay individual. But sometimes we have, again, speakers. Sometimes ones who've been even trained in the hawza, right? Who have the little Dairy Queen swirly thing on their head, right? They got that too. And they say some interesting things. And sometimes it catches people's attention. And the arguments, they seem to make sense. Right? We gave the example of Musaylama. His whole list of Sharia and fiqh. Oh, God is everywhere. Why do you have to pray towards the Qibla or the Kaaba? That sounds like a good argument, right? فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Allah says in the Quran, turn, I'm everywhere. Seems like a good argument. How do we make sure we don't fall prey to these weak arguments? How do we know that we build ourselves up where if that flat tire does come, or if we do start losing air, we know how to catch it, and we know how to at least, let us drive for a little bit longer until we can get it to somebody who can repair it, inshallah. So we'll continue with this conversation in our next session. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, I think there was one question on Slido that came from last week. So we'll do that and then we'll jump to the quiz, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam. In the last majlis, I guess the Wilada program, right? You mentioned that you should not tell anyone about what that person has done or said something bad. Does that mean that if an alim is taking the community in a wrong direction, that you keep quiet? I like the new background for the Slido Q&A. Very, very spiritual and uplifting. Thank you, by the way. So we talked about one narration from the 8th Imam, and he said one of the qualities of a mu'min is that they cover up defects of other mu'mineen and other individuals. They don't start revealing things, right? So with this idea, right, there's two different things here, right? Well, let's go with the alim part. I think that's that. Does it mean that if an alim is taking the community in a wrong direction that you keep quiet? So there's a few different parts of it. So one is, how do you know the alim is taking you in the wrong direction, right? So maybe it's because the alim showed up late and missed Maghrib, right? For example, maybe, does that mean that the community is going in the wrong direction? Maybe, I don't know, sorry I came late. Is it, because of some personal ideas that, maybe the certain ideas we have about Islam, like, we like this Islam because this is the way that we had it when we were growing up, they're not living up to that? If that's your idea, okay, maybe, but is that a real reason to say that the alim is going in the wrong direction? The question would be, what is the criteria for determining whether an alim is leading or giving the wrong answer? I mean, the simplest way would be to go to him and say, look, what's your evidence for this idea? Are you able to explain, right? You can ask for their evidence. And most ulama will give some version of it, right? I don't think they can go in depth, especially if the answer is detailed. But for simple things, they can say, why did you decide to do this or that? So for example, and many times we've talked about these different days of a'mal, right? These different a'mal that maybe we've been doing a lot when we were younger, but we've provided, look, here's the evidence that ulama have had that said, look, the evidence doesn't seem strong, but if you want to do it, if you're a muqallid, the Vaidul Sistani, then you just do a niyyah of raja matlubiyah. You can still do it. There's no problem. You can, inshallah, you'll still get rewards for it. Not a big deal. So there's explanations behind it. Why is this thing inauthentic? Why this, that? Okay, we can sit, we can talk about it if you want. But that's usually not how individuals, I'm not saying that this is the way that this person's thinking, but that's not really how a lot of ulama are addressed, right? It's usually that, you're doing something incorrect, you need to change your behavior. And it's interesting, right? Because we were talking about ghurba, right? This is all about the idea of ghurba and the imam being gharib, right? The 8th imam. We have an interesting narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. where he says, al-ulama ghuraba. He says the ulama are really gharib. They're the ones who are really alienated and alone and kind of in solitude, right? Why? He says, لِكَثْرَةِ الجُّهَالِ, because of the excessive amount of ignorant people. Because you have individuals who think that, okay, you have a person who studied for X amount of years, who's able to understand Islam at this level. Well, yeah, I read an article on islam.org once. I read a Q&A once. I read the English Tawdi al-Masail. I've got an idea about what's going on. So yeah, I can go and I can start arguing. I can start giving my own fatwas and passing my own ideas and this and that. So you have people who have regular ignorance, which is okay, right? If you don't know, but you know that you don't know, that's fine. Then you should be a bit more open and say, look, I'm not sure about this. I've read a little bit, but I'd like to discuss more. Wonderful, that's great. But if it's compound ignorance, jahl murakkab, you don't even know that you don't know. And that can be a big thing. So if an alim really is taking the community in a wrong direction, then it should be addressed, definitely. You go to the alim, say, look, it seems, I'm not sure why this decision was made, why you made the decision. Could you explain? Give the explanation. And if it really seems like this is a case of like dhulm or, oppression or whatever word, extreme you want to use, which I don't think I've ever seen, I've followed a lot of different communities from around the world. I don't think I've ever seen it in that sense, right? Maybe certain places where you got some people stealing money and things like that. I guess that's slightly different, right? And how you go about solving that, again, that's a separate conversation. But again, number one would be having an open conversation and being, having the benefit of the doubt, say, look, maybe they're incorrect. Maybe before, these WhatsApp forwards are sent out or before emails are being sent out, maybe you're like, let me go talk to the alim himself and see what his actual reasoning is before I start building up my whole negative thinking and assumptions about why he made the decision or why they're doing this or that, right? Because it's easy for us to assume, it's raining outside and this is going to happen, that's going to happen, all this sort of negative prediction, negative assumption, negative suspicion. And that's what's going to destroy you and I. Okay, so we can go on with the quiz, inshallah. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, assalamu alaikum to everybody. I think we can just get started right away, right? Because we took some time with that. So, yeah, we can just get started, inshallah. So, yeah, Juma Mubarak, Tahtul Hanak, guacamole, very nice. Sakina, specialist, Raib, Parmenides, Sanjay R, Sakina, Muhammad Abbas, Hadi Manekia. Look out behind you. What happened? Is it because it says Allah? Is that why? Yeah, we can just get started. Assalamu alaikum. There we go. Okay. Imam Ali alayhi salam is reported to have said that what is the fruit of jahl, ignorance? Is it shar, evil, hellfire, nar, doubt, shak, or all of the above? Ahsant. 90% of you had no doubt in the answer. Sorry about that. Pun was intended. Shak. Ahsant. Shak, thamaratul jahl. Shak, doubt is the fruit of ignorance. When you don't know, then right, that initial doubt will start. According to Imam Ali alayhi salam, lack of what is a ghurba, meaning a source of alienation, loneliness, or distancing. Lack of deen, lack of real close friends, lack of one's imam, alayhi salam, or lack of good food. That must have been somebody from the MC speaking, obviously. Because every time there's any complaints about the food, then they feel gharib all the time, don't they? The amount of complainers and... So 65% of you have got it incorrect. 22% of you got it right. Imam said that it's al-ahibba, having those true close friends. If you don't have those, then you're going to feel alienated. Right? We talked about people being on different wavelengths, right? In our Without program. So, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam has said that all humans are animals except for our Shias, those who are patient and kind, some mu'mineen, or dues-paying members. So far, most of these questions have been from the Wilada program. So, once again, the majority is in falsehood. He said, إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ مِّنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. الناس بهائم. People are animals except for قَلِيلٌ مِّنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Some mu'mineen. And just like his hadith, even only some mu'mineen got the answer right too. I'm not saying the rest of you are animals, but... All right. The original Roman alphabet lacked the following letters except J, U, X, or W. Of course, this is the question where, of course, the majority gets it right, right? Remember, it's saying the original Roman alphabet. I know some of you are thinking about Roman numerals right now. Some of you are thinking about Roman English. That comes in all these dua books, right? You call it Roman English. That always threw me off. My parents would say, yeah, you have to see it in Roman English. Like, what is Roman English? Like, what is that? Oh, man. Split everywhere. I don't even remember what the answer was. So, excuse me, Slido, what's the correct answer? X. Okay, that's it. Let's see who won tonight. Parmenides. Although Parmenides is Greek, not Roman, right? But we did a good job regardless. But looks like Parmenides may have gotten which one wrong. I don't know. We'll have to find out whether they got this question, the hardest one, which is this hadith, or the final one. Oh, so it's a tie, actually. Everybody got 3 out of 4, but Parmenides is 1 second faster. Guacamole, maybe because your guacamole wasn't keto-friendly. Maybe you put in the wrong oils. Maybe that's why that 1 second you had a delay there. Inshallah, maybe next time. Thor, oh, mashallah. Thor, nice to see you for the first time here. Okay. Abu with 3 U's and specialist. So good job to all of you. Okay, so we will see you all, inshallah, next week for next program. We'll continue our conversation and discussion. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ahli bayti tayyibin tahirin. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به، يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأسلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأوجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الحادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله ملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبيا بكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه، السلام عليكم يا أسفياء الله وأوداءه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدتي نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصر، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم، وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم، وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي. فلعن الله أمة قتلت، ولعن الله أمة ظلمت، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع والأخي المجيب إلى طاعة ربي الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، والحق الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. اللهم إني تعرضت لزيارة أوليائك رغبة في ثوابك ورجاء لمغفرتك وجزيل حسانك، فأسألك أن تصلي على محمد وآله الطاهرين، وتجعل رزقي بهم دارا وعيشي بهم قارا وزيارتي بهم مقبولة وحياتي بهم طيبة، وادرجني دراج المكرمين، واجعلني ممن ينقلب من زيارتي مشاهد أحبائك مفلها موجها، قد استوجب غفران الذنوب وستر العيوب وكشف الكروب، إنك أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا صاحب النس والزمان الأمان 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 الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان، السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وصحن الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجل من أنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقاعدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.